On this episode of the WildFed podcast.
Word on the street is Florida is now home to more exotic reptiles than native ones.
It is getting wild down here. The pythons down in the Everglades, they've wiped out 90 to 99% of our fur-bearing native mammals. Pythons are hunting alligators. Alligators aren't really hunting pythons.
This is an attempt at conservation, too top-down, too strict, and a lot of rules made by people who don't really participate on the landscape in some cases.
We need to be giving our hunters and our outdoorsmen more freedom than we're allowing. 3 years after us hitting it really hard, we're starting to see the native wildlife slowly coming back.
You start talking about needing to remove invasive species and people think, well, the reason they're here is people, we should just leave them alone. These are real ecological issues. This isn't just undermining somebody's steps or golf course.
I don't want to black out wrestling with this freaking thing. She'll wrap around me and finish me off, guaranteed.
Episode 82 of the WildFed podcast, Wrangling Snakes and Saving the Everglades with the Python Cowboy Mike Kimmel, is brought to you by Surthrival. Did you know that antlers from cervids, that's the members of the deer family, are the only mammalian organs that fall off and completely regenerate year after year? Not just regenerate, but come back even bigger. What's causing that explosive rapid growth, which in elk can be over an inch of antler a day? Well, it's a cocktail of many powerful steroidal compounds and important tissue building blocks. In addition to stem cells, there are many important growth factors, several forms of collagen, incredible amounts of iron, and a suite of other organic compounds that, when taken by humans, increase lean body mass, tune metabolism, and fuel recovery. If you're athletic, post-surgery, rehabbing an injury, or looking to have more consistent energy levels, take a look at Surthrival's elk antler formulas. Surthrival carries the highest grade elk antler products humanely harvested from free-ranging elk right here in the USA. And right now at surthrival.com, all elk antler products are 20% off with the coupon code ROBUST20. Head over to surthrival.com and check out the entire product line. Today's episode is also brought to you by the Hunter's Journey online mentorship program. Whether you're wondering if becoming a hunter is right for you, you're ready to start a hunting journey of your own, or you're a beginner hunter working towards your first harvest, hunting can be daunting. Where do you start? What gear and knowledge do you need? And what do you do when your strategy's not working? Most importantly, how do you hunt ethically and sustainably? An ancient and essential part of the hunter's journey is having a mentor to pass on their decades of experience and guide you on your own journey. Chris Gilmore, our guest from episode 58 on tracking and awareness, has created a comprehensive online hunter mentorship program called The Hunter's Journey. If you're ready to start or improve your hunting, check out thehuntersjourney.com. There's an early bird special running right now till summer, and all WildFed listeners get an additional $100 off with the coupon code WildFed100. Head over to thehuntersjourney.com, enter WildFed100, and learn to hunt with skill, respect, and heart. I'm Daniel Vitalis, and you're listening to the WildFed podcast, a show about reconnecting with nature through hunting, fishing, foraging, and food. WildFed. Food is all around you. Mike Kimmel, aka the Python Cowboy, lives and works on the front lines of the Florida invasion. Not an invasion in the classical martial sense, but rather a biological one. That's because Florida's unique climate allows exotic animals from around the globe, animals brought there by people and released, whether intentionally or not, to quickly adapt to the warm, sunny weather. This is particularly true of reptiles like pythons, but it's true of many bird, fish, and mammal species too. Lest we downplay the damage this can have, it's important to remember that native fauna and flora and their collective delicately balanced ecosystems, naive to the newcomers, are often driven to the brink, threatened by the hunting and foraging strategies that deleterious exotics bring with them. That's why the Everglades needs a Python Cowboy. And a cowboy is a great description since Mike's a bit of a renegade who enjoys the adrenalized rush of capturing dangerous exotic critters. But he's also a passionate conservationist. He's not just killing these animals for sport, he's removing them from the landscape, giving native species much needed time to recalibrate to the biological novelty in their new world. Sometimes he takes them for food, sometimes for bounty, and sometimes to rehabilitate them, caring for and even using them in public education. Sometimes our approach approach to dealing with exotic non-natives can be cause for significant controversy. There are some widely varied opinions on invasive species biology and how we should deal with the challenges that these species can create. Just the language we use to describe these issues can be contentious. Obviously, using the same logic, humans are invasive and non-native to many of the landscapes we inhabit, and we're the vector by which so many of these so-called invasions takes place. So it stands to reason that philosophies differ on how we should talk about and approach the issue, but pragmatically, I think most of us care deeply about native species survival, and that's why, if you live outside of Florida and don't spend a lot of time there, regardless of how you fall on these issues, I'm asking you to consider what Mike has to say. Suspend judgment and just listen. There are many animals, particularly mammals and birds in the Everglades, that are being significantly impacted by pythons, iguanas, monitor lizards, and other exotic animals. It doesn't make them bad animals, they aren't. It just means they aren't great for their new home, not yet anyway. Our native species need a break, and I'm glad Mike and people like him are there, willing to do the hard work of protecting them, at least until they can adapt. And in the meantime, we get to eat the invaders. Mike Kimmel, a.k.a. Trapper Mike, a.k.a. the Python Cowboy. Welcome to the show.
How we doing?
Doing great, man. Word on the street is Florida is now home to more exotic reptiles than native ones. True story?
It is getting wild down here for sure. Yeah, we got just about everything you can imagine, from big old snakes to big lizards to monkeys and everything in between.
Do you got monkeys down there?
Yeah, we do. And actually, supposedly they have some pretty nasty diseases, even herpes. So don't go playing with them.
All right. Yeah, I hear some things like sometimes you hear about fish with chlamydia or something like that. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But man, you've got what from the outside, I know how being like an influencer, on social media or whatever, I know how the real world is compared to what the image can be, but you got what looks like the dream job down there, man. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, and it's pretty much exactly what it looks like, man. It's every day something different. Every day's exciting. And yeah, absolutely the dream job. It's not easy. I'm working nonstop, but I'm doing what I love. So I'm happy every day for sure. And hogs, lizards, helping out farmers, helping out communities that are having these iguanas, even pythons coming in and causing problems. And yeah, it's pretty crazy.
What are like the official job descriptions that you have? Because you've got what looks like a very strong budding social media presence. I'm kind of surprised. Like I've been like, where's the TV show? I don't get it. How do you not have that yet? It's like you got all the components. But so the social media thing's growing, but you're doing like real deal work down there with, not just, you're doing like animal control type work and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. A lot of different job titles, I've been a state contractor, wildlife consultant for TV shows, things like that. I would say, a lot of wildlife management is the general thing for me. Invasive species, of course, is a huge part of that because of what's going on in Florida right now. Right now, that's really the best way to help. The easiest way to help is removing these invasive species. But I'm also doing a lot with native species. I'm doing, nuisance deer control in areas where the deer are just getting too populated. They're becoming nuisances and problems for farmers and even for the deer populations themselves. We get too high of a population, we start to have outbreak of illnesses, diseases, and the overall health just goes down. So working with the state of Florida, where they've given us nuisance deer tags on some of these farms to remove these deer. Areas where I've had rabies outbreaks for raccoons, I'm dealing with that. Getting these sick raccoons out, getting bit by them, getting rabies shots myself, all kinds of stuff. And helping the state of Florida with the pythons in the Everglades, and helping golf courses, communities with the iguanas. And also we rescue a lot of wildlife, even invasives. Right now, I think I have probably close to 25 rescues on the ranch, ranging from snakes, pythons, boas, to iguanas, monitor lizards, hogs, a squirrel. The list goes on. Chameleons, peacocks, all kinds of stuff.
Peacocks.
Oh yeah. So many job titles for sure. And it's been really kind of exciting, like you said, the social media, to watch it grow and change my life in a lot of ways. I've been doing the same thing for a while, but I just never really documented any of it. I never really had a social media. I've just started that this last maybe 3 years. And it all started with me making the news for rescuing an alligator from a python.
Oh, wow.
A python was wrapped around an alligator, and I got the python off the alligator, saved the alligator. Funny thing was, that was actually my third time doing that.
Right.
And it was just, I happened to have someone with me who got it on video. And it was like, wow, the news kind of picking it up, getting a lot more calls. And then actually the owner of Flow Grown, which is a big clothing brand down here in Florida, reached out to me, and he's like, dude, I made you an Instagram. Start using it. I promise you, it'll change stuff for you. It'll help you in a lot of ways. And I did. And it definitely has. I got all kind of sponsors now, working on TV shows. Shout out Sig Sawyer, a new sponsor here.
Sig, they're up my way in New Hampshire, man. I go over there and train sometimes.
Awesome. Yeah, they just flew me out to Montana to do their elite hunter training for them. And dude,
right on.
For me, it's like I never thought catching snakes would take me up to Montana with Sig Sawyer. So it's pretty crazy. And then, helping out behind scenes on TV shows and being on TV shows, and a lot of companies reaching out, wanting to do a TV show with what I got going on. But I just feel like it's bad timing. I'm not really into all that. They usually, kind of want to fake things. And, that's why I've started the YouTube. And, I have a guy editing the videos for me. But it's all exact. It's me. It's what I want to show. It's what I really do. And I'd rather put my focus in that than a TV show, I think. But, I'm open to whatever.
Yeah, times are changing too. You might be able to make it in the way you want to make it, So, I mean, that's what we've been able to do with WildFed. But I know what you're saying. A lot of times it's what you're seeing isn't real. I like this story because so many people today want to be a social media star, and that leads them to doing something that will get them big on there. It's much cooler when somebody's doing something for real and then realizes, hey, this has the ability to really capture people's attention. And then also you're bringing people back to some really important concepts. When I first saw your Instagram page, I'll be honest, I was like, oh, this dude's wrestling with reptiles or whatever. I didn't realize till I started listening to some of your stuff, the depth of your connection to the wildlife, and then actually hearing some of the stories like about your pet squirrel and things like that, and going like, oh, wow, this guy's really connected to the land, connected to the animals, has... because I think from the outside, people see the killing component and get put off. And then I think the other thing is that we're in that, as you know, this ultra politically correct climate where words like invasive species just get people all triggered. And then they start thinking, they're thinking about Cubans coming over on boats to flee. You know what I mean? And they like put that onto these animals. And so unfortunately, it's like when we say invasive, we don't mean as if like they've come here on their own to attack us. We know we brought them. It's just a word, but people start thinking you're against these animals or something. And so one thing I'd love to discuss with you today is a little bit about actual issues that these animals cause for native fauna, native flora, and things like that, because I know that's real. But first, man, let's get into the obvious here. Tell me about this python situation taking place down there in Florida.
Yeah, so the pythons is definitely a huge deal down here, and it's really interesting, especially for me. I grew up in love with snakes. I was out there catching native snakes, keeping them as pets, buying exotic snakes like pythons, keeping them as pets and things like that. I was all into the reptiles when I was a kid as well. And that's another thing you kind of touched on. By no means do I blame any of these animals. By no means do I want anyone to fear these animals. It's actually the opposite, and that's why I do these educational shows around the state on my own time and dollar. I want people to respect them and understand and not be scared of them. And also to know the difference between a native snake and an invasive snake. But the pythons, down in the Everglades, they've wiped out 90 to 99% of our fur-bearing native mammals. That's our raccoons, that's our otters, our squirrels, our marsh
Wait,
rabbits.
did you say
All that stuff.
99%?
90 to 99% of those various
No.
animals in the Everglades have been
So
decimated,
the
wiped out.
Everglades have become like kind of a wasteland for mammals?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. And the wading birds are next. They're on the decline.
Okay.
And that's why, you heard me say earlier about me rescuing 3 alligators from pythons. How many times have you come across a snake eating something? It's not a real common event.
Mhm.
It's like an intimate moment for them.
Right.
It happens quick. They dispose of the evidence. They disappear. I've come across it 3 times with just alligators. And that was actually in the first year of me python hunting because I was hitting it so hard. That just goes to show they've wiped out all their other food sources to now where they're preying on the
alligators.
other top tier predator,
Right.
alligators. So, there is some people got to understand too about how we get these numbers. Everything's based off of basically animal sightings or captures and things like that. That's all biologists and scientists have to base it off of. So, we've gone from seeing all these animals every single day out there, guys like myself, we're out there every single day, to seeing nothing, to seeing none. And that really is actually a pretty accurate representation of what's going on with the populations. The first 3 years of being a state contractor python hunting, I was basically sleeping out there, a good 5 days a week, sleeping in my truck, hunting pythons nonstop. And first 2 years, I maybe saw 1 raccoon. And it's just insane to think about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really is.
In a place where they must have thrived in the past. You'd think the Everglades would be a fantastic
I've seen
place
more
for
panthers in the Everglades than I've seen raccoons.
Wow.
Since I've started python hunting.
And I think one of the things people should understand is that when you bring an exotic in, the ecosystems had no time to adapt. And so you've got this predator who animals just don't, they're just not hip to it. They don't know,
And it's pretty amazing. And I've seen it with other reptiles. Reptiles are incredible at making quick adaptations, and they're just the ultimate survivors. They really are. They're great at getting in an area and just taking it over, killing, laying their young, reproducing. They're amazing at it. Everything they do, they're really good at it. And so these snakes come in here, and our native species, they have no natural instincts. They have no defensive mechanisms. They're not out there. A raccoon's not creeping around looking for a snake that's going to eat it. Yeah. It's just not in its brain. I've been out there, and I recently actually took a group of kids out on a youth python hunt, which I pushed the state to start, and they started it. I used to help guide with the youth gator hunts, and we got them to pick up the youth python hunt, which is going to be super good for the state. But so I had a group of kids out there with me, showing them how to python hunt. We come across a marsh rabbit right on the edge of the city. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Here's a marsh rabbit. This is awesome. This is not too long ago. This is, 3 years after us hitting it really hard. We're starting to see the native wildlife slowly coming back, which is like a huge reward for us, which I'll touch on that later as well. But we see this marsh rabbit, and then I'm like, oh my God, there's a python right there. Oh, no. Sure enough, there's a python waiting for that marsh rabbit to get close enough. And that marsh rabbit just has no idea at all. It would have walked right over this snake like nothing.
Whereas it does know about alligators, right? It does understand probably how to avoid those
and they know
guys.
about stuff like that. But even then, alligators, they're not really preying on them like that. Okay. Alligators are mostly eating fish. Okay. So the mammals aren't real. They're not even really looking for alligators like that. You know what I mean? So the snakes it's a free-for-all for them. It's a total buffet, and they've made their mark quick.
Okay. Now you're talking about, growing up in Florida, being into herpetology, having snakes and things like that. And I live in Maine, so I share a time zone with you, but it couldn't be more different, And I didn't see my first python till I moved down. I was about 19, I think, 18. Probably about 18. I moved down to Tampa for a little bit.
And then all of a sudden there's this herpetology scene down there, and I'd go to people's houses and they'd have tanks and just big old snakes, boas and
It's
pythons.
big down here. Yeah.
Right. So what I imagine the main issue is that you've got the right climate where just about anything from anywhere in the world can set up, right? Like,
Exactly. Yeah, we're right on the equator, and yeah, we got the moisture, we got the heat, and the diverse animals and everything like that. Yeah, it's a good habitat for a lot of these cool exotics people like. Absolutely.
All right, and obviously you rehash this every time anyone interviews you or you're on the news or something like that, but let's go over it. It's like people get a snake, it gets too big, they let it go. People have a hurricane, house gets trashed, snake gets out, it's gone. Snake just gets out, it's gone. What else is going on? I've heard with iguanas, like some stowaway in a boat comes to deliver bananas. There's iguanas in there. They get out
shipping containers, things like that.
Right.
A lot of it, I think a lot of it comes from like the exotic, or not the exotic, the drug trade.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the cocaine cowboys. That's when it all really started. These guys had a lot of money. They would get these cool, crazy, exotic animals, and they're real irresponsible with them.
Yeah. Right.
And then, those get loose, they get more, and then it just becomes cool to have them because people think these guys are cool, know? And then it just kind of becomes a part of the culture, especially in Miami. And then, you just have a bunch of people that just, get these animals for the cool factor.
Sure. You're going to the club that day. You want a white tiger on one side and a 20-foot boa on the other side.
Especially with the snakes, dude. The large snakes are always, even more than a tiger, dude. You bring out a big old snake, that's going to get more reactions than a tiger. It's crazy. And they're easy. They're a lot easier to keep and maintain than a tiger.
Yeah, right.
So you only got to feed it once a month, if you really want. Wow. And it's just going to hang out. And they get out easily. They can escape easily. These people don't have proper enclosures. They get out. Hurricane comes in. It gets destroyed. Or it gets too big. They get freaked out. Or they go to jail and their family don't want to deal with it, and they just let it go.
Yeah, right.
So, there's a lot of things that go on with it. And I think, like I said, a lot of it kind of came from the drug trade, sort of kind of made it cool.
Yeah. That makes sense. And at this point, when you look at this, my guess is it's not, having gone down to hunt iguanas, the idea that they'll ever be eradicated from that landscape just seems preposterous. What seems like is possible is you create a little breathing room for the rest of the fauna and flora to adjust.
Exactly.
Where is it at with the pythons? How realistic is it that you could actually get them out of the glades?
So I think because of how the Everglades is, 1.5 million acres of impenetrable swamp, most of it, that you need an airboat, and the government doesn't want you riding airboats around in there most of the time. You know what I mean? So they make it difficult. It's actually national park. So
national park.
I'd say half of it's about national park.
Motorized vehicles can't go in those parts.
No, and then even the areas that are the conservation areas, it's really limited. Really, really limited.
Okay.
So the way it's set up now, no, we're never going to get rid of all of them. Especially the state program itself doesn't allow the contractors to use dogs. That's why me personally, I haven't been, most of my hunting, I haven't been doing for the state recently. Mm-hmm. I've been doing it on my own because my dog, I'll take him out and he'll catch a python almost every time. So to me, that's a game changer. And I think we need to be doing more things like that. We need to be giving our hunters and our outdoorsmen more freedom than we're allowing. That's why ever since we restricted everything in Everglades, that's when it all went to shit. We took the eyes and the ears out of the Everglades. We kicked the gladesmen out of the Everglades. And while these guys are out there hunting, fishing, doing their thing, they love the land more than anybody. And I'm one of those guys, you know what I mean? And, we need to allow access and, protectors of the land is really what we are. And, it's just, we need to do more than we are for sure, but it's with all the red tape in the national park and everything with that, it makes it really tough.
So when you got, what's going on then is you've got the national park mentality, which is kind of exclude as much human activity as you can. Particularly, I live right on the White Mountain National park and forest up here. And so it's like we've got the areas where we can access, we bear hunt up here with hounds, but then we've got areas that we can't bring any motorized vehicles into and all of that too. So this is an attempt at conservation, but it just too down, too strict, and a lot of rules made by people who don't really participate on the landscape in some cases.
For sure. And, there's been some talk of shady things going on with where they've been allowing fracking and different things like that.
Oh, interesting.
So it seems like there's almost other interests.
Keep some
involved.
eyes out of there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's in the national park. They don't allow people to even remove the invasive species. If you're to come across a 20-foot python, technically you just got to let it go.
Their reasoning being they don't
park.
Want you to confuse a native animal.
Yeah, for sure. And I can understand that, but at the same time, you should punish the act.
Yeah.
So if someone does make that mistake, then you punish them, and then in turn, people will educate themselves before.
But it's like,
doing
meanwhile,
like
if you're losing mammals at that rate, it does seem a little misguided.
It is, and there's a lot in the national park for sure. Now, I will say, when I first started, I was like, man, there is, hundreds and thousands of these pythons out there, maybe even 1 million because of how many I was catching. I would say we're catching, maybe a little less pythons than we were, but what I see is we're catching much smaller pythons on average.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And we're already seeing native wildlife bouncing back slowly.
Okay.
We're starting to see raccoons, we're starting to see otters, we're starting to see marsh rabbits where we didn't before. So to me, that tells me that the pythons are congregating on the levees and closer to town more than we think. That's where they've been released. Those are the areas they know. They feel more comfortable, closer to people, closer as animal smells. They like being closer to that drier land. That's kind of where they're staying. Of course, there's probably pythons further out, but I think their main populations are along those areas that we're hunting, and that's why we're getting so many. I'd say there's closer to 100,000 pythons and less. Than being over that.
Now,
which is good.
You think then the interior glades is a little bit less populated by them?
Okay. I do think so.
But
at the same time, you got to understand. So the interior of the glades, there's Tamiami Trail that cuts straight through the middle of it. That is a highway where people will definitely dump animals and things like that. Mm-hmm. So from that interior, that's a hot spot to hunt, that whole strip across there. But I mean, miles from there, out in the middle of the swamp where there's no levees or anything reaching to it, I don't think the populations are like where people think, oh, there's got to be tons out there.
Right.
I don't think it's like that.
Okay.
I think they're actually closer to the levees and closer to those populated areas.
Got it. Hey, describe this hunt to me. Imagine, especially somebody listening who's maybe Wisconsin deer hunting over, cornfields, or somebody who's Western big game like elk hunting up in the mountains DIY or something like that, who just, this isn't like camo on your face out there with a rifle hunt. So describe like what this looks like and how you like to hunt it, and maybe some other strategies people are using successfully too. We'll get back to the show in a moment, but first, how's your light diet? Ever since the Industrial Revolution ushered in an era of highly processed foods, the nutritionally aware have been carefully selecting whole, unrefined foods to counterbalance the negative health impacts that industrial junk food causes. Now, in the technological age, we face a similar health challenge, but this time, the culprit is light. What you could call highly refined blue light. It upsets our circadian rhythm, impacting the quality of our sleep and even upsetting our hormone function and metabolism. That's because the light we consume through our eyes is like a kind of electromagnetic nutrition. Our bodies need crisp blue light in the early part of the day to set our internal clock. That's why it's so good to head outside first thing in the morning to jumpstart your day. But our computers, tablets, phones, home lighting, and vehicle headlight LEDs also use blue light that tricks our bodies into thinking that night is day, upsetting our melatonin production, disrupting our sleep, and even impacting our all-important mitochondrial function. That's where Raw Optics come in. Raw Optics produces the finest blue light blocking glasses to filter out the unhealthy, or rather untimely, light from your devices, helping to optimize your light diet and restoring your circadian rhythm. They use melanin pigment-infused lenses with German steel and Italian acetate frames. They're streamlined and stylish, and they have daytime and nighttime designs. If you work on a computer, spend a lot of time on your phone, or drive at night where bright blue LED headlights are shining into your eyes, you need to check out Raw Optics.
Go to rawoptics.com/wildfed. That's raoptics.com/wildfed for 15% off your order. Again, it's spelled RA Optics, and you'll get 15% off by going to raoptics.com/wildfed. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, so when I first started doing it, I was hunting like a hog or a deer, and I was not successful. How I really started killing it and getting a ton of them is I would go out there in my truck and drive these levees that stretch out into the middle of the swamp. I would drive them all night, 12 hours or more. Drive it all night, maybe sleep a couple hours, and then scout that next day, hit it that next night, and do that for a week straight kind of thing. And I have these high-powered lights on the roof of my truck. I light up the entire swamp, and I'm just staring at the ground, and I'm looking for just a tiny glimpse of a shimmer or that pattern or something that tells me that a python's there. Then I get out and catch it. That's one of the ways I do it. Another way I do it is if I'm not having luck on the levee, I'll go ahead and park, and I'll get out, and I'll just walk out from the levee out in the middle of the swamp for a few hours, walking around the swamp, looking in the pools. But that's all depends on the weather and the sun and everything going on that day. Sometimes the levee's better. Sometimes I'll feel like those pools or the dry areas out in the swamp is better. It just depends on temperature, sun, and everything. If it's mating season, nesting season, hatching season, a lot of factors I've learned to kind of take into account and switch up my hunting tactics. Lately, what I've been doing, and it's been very successful for me, is staying off the levees. The state has hired a bunch of new hunters. They're really not my kind of people. They're kind of new to the hunting scene, I think. They like to call and report me for a whole bunch of stuff. I'm driving too fast, or,
Right.
I'm hanging out my window, or, it's kind of silly stuff. So I've just kind of distanced myself. I'm not trying to have any drama with anybody. And it's actually worked out really good for me. Those levees have been getting hit really hard. People aren't catching as much. And I'm hunting out in the middle of the swamp. I say middle of the swamp, not really out far, but kind of on the edge of canals that I know no one's really hunting, but it's along these canal ways that are a little bit closer to town. And there's all these islands along the canal. I take my little John boat out there and I'll hunt the islands, and especially
so you're out in
season.
You're out on the boat, you're pulling up
in the swamp,
you're getting out on there
to the island, getting out on the island, searching around.
Are those hummocks wet, or it's
cool
pretty dry up there?
No, so it's usually limestone that they've dug up when they dug the canals and stacked it up.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so it's dry. I mean, it's covered. Some of these islands are insanely thick. They've been out there for decades.
I bet.
So it's.
What are you wearing on your feet when you're doing this?
I have my lacrosse boots or
hip waders, or just a pair of
just
regular
knee
rubber
boots.
boots. Yep.
Usually snake proof, because there's a lot of water moccasins out there.
Okay.
And then I'm out there searching the island, and that's where for a while I wasn't using the dog, but now I tried my lead dog Moose one day, and he found me 2 pythons the first day, and since then he's just been killing it. He's just a hog dog, a Florida cur dog, just a cowboy dog, So it's kind of crazy, and he freezes and points them like a bird dog.
Yeah,
it's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
He afraid of them, or they'll get right up on him?
No, he wants to get right up on him. I keep him away, though. I want him to sit and just watch, let me do my thing once he finds them. So we've been kind of training and working on that, but he just has a natural knack for doing it. Wow. And, because of that, I haven't even been working for the state. I've just been doing that on my own. Now I make so much money on the skins that the state bounty is kind of peanuts compared to what I can make on the skins. So what the state pays is $50 for the first 4 feet, and then $25 each additional foot after that.
Wow, you're paid by the foot.
Paid by the foot.
No
so
kidding.
On a big old 18-foot python, you can make $350, which is a good,
because you need your gas money, you need some time compensation.
Well,
you're missing
exactly
sleep.
That. So one 18-foot python is maybe my gas and food for the trip, and I'm catching an 18-foot python maybe once a year if I'm lucky, not even.
Yeah, what's an average one that you're seeing for real?
Average size now, in the beginning it was like 10 foot to 13 foot. Now it's like 6 to 9 foot.
Okay.
And you may go there a week without catching one, or you may catch 10 in a night. It's so hit or miss. It's hard to say. But I'm off the skins themselves. I'm making way more than that
privately,
off of making products and
because over on your website you do. I've been keeping an eye over there, and I'm just seeing I see stickers and merch and stuff.
Before I can even get it on the website.
I bet.
It sells like this. And I actually just teamed up with Magpul. I sold them a few 100 feet of skins, and they're coming out with the belts, the new gun belt. Yeah, made with my Python skins.
Hell yeah, I love Magpul.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, they're great.
Super proud of that. Yeah, and that'll be out probably later this month. Kind of not supposed to say anything, but you'll be the first to know.
I bet they flirt with the hunting scene so much these days. I can see them making a pretty cool transition. I did I did a hunting class with them up in the mountains in Washington. That was great. Their long range hunter class, and that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, good guys. Talk to me about when you catch them, because again, for people listening, like, you're not running up there with like a like some kind of grabby stick. From what I've seen, you're just going in there, hands all, and just grabbing them.
Those snake sticks ain't gonna work on a 13, 14 footer.
What's he weigh? A 13 or 14 foot snake?
Anywhere from 50 to 80 pounds.
What do you weigh?
I weigh 135 pounds.
So to
give you an idea, this last one I caught, that just the video went kind of viral on YouTube. It's the one that bit me on my arm. Blood was spraying everywhere.
Yeah.
Caught it out on an island by myself. It was 17 foot, 7 inches, and 135 pounds. So it was a pretty fair fight. I had my bare hands. It had its mouth. And, that thing's solid muscle. And it put up a fight for sure.
Wild animal and a human being, like even just a domestic dog, you try to grab a 135-pound dog, you're going to see
it'll put in perspective
real quick. So like human beings, I mean, unless they're highly trained grapplers or whatever, typically just can't generate the kind of force and strength. So when you've got an animal your size, right?
You're not moving it. And when it gets in those weeds and even just grass, that grass is super strong and long. Just that tension from that, you're not moving. It just locks in. They know how to use their body to leverage, really well. So that's why in the video you'll see, like, I was like, screw it, I'm going to go for the tail. Grabbing the head is kind of the safer bet, because then you have control of the snake at that point, the head. But the head was a little tricky to get to. I was worried it would start to try to bolt. So I was like, screw it. I grabbed its tail, and dude, it started dragging me off into the swamp quick.
Yeah.
I got it where I kind of was able to dig my heels into the limestone and stop it, but I wasn't getting it nowhere. You can see me in the video trying, and it's not going anywhere. So we're kind of at a tug of war, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to stop it, so then it's going to turn around and start trying to attack me and come at me. Soon as it does that, then I'll have a chance to get its head. And then it'll make a good video too. But, so, I start getting this thing, and it's coming back on me. It's doing what I want. And, she must have been an old smart girl. She knew what she was doing. She struck at me, and I dodged it. These big snakes, to me, they're slower just because I'm used to these like smaller, quicker ones. So these big ones, it's like easier for me. They're slow. I can dodge it easy. So she strikes, I dodge it. She goes back about quarter way and then hits me with a quick another one that I totally was not expecting.
Yeah, wow.
And she got me, and I got lucky. I was able to get her right off of me. She kind of almost let go. Normally they'd latch on and they'll wrap, and a snake that big, you could be in trouble.
All by yourself out there.
Yeah, and you're out by yourself.
Yeah.
So I got her off of me, and then at that point, I got her now. I got her behind the head. We're good. I just got to hold on and tire her out before I tire out is really what it comes down to, is just knowing how to kind of not exert yourself, how to not wrestle with her, how to make her wrestle with herself, basically. And then, so I got her there, blood just squirting out of me like it's a water balloon just exploded.
You got an arterial hit?
Yeah, I don't think it was a main artery or anything like that, but I can see the scar. It's where these 3 big old veins in my forearm meet before my artery right here, where they dump into the artery, I guess. And That's where one was. And then up top here, there's another vein that runs on my arm, and she got me with like 3 punctures there.
Okay.
That was the one that was really spraying out. And, I was like, oh shit, it's 100 degrees, my heart's pounding, dude. I was nervous going in on this snake. And, my main thing was just don't black out. I don't want to black out from blood and heat wrestling with this freaking thing, because she'll wrap around me and finish me off, guaranteed. Thankfully, I got her under control. I had a snake bag with me. I was planning on putting whatever snake I caught in. I wasn't expecting to catch this monster, and she wasn't going to fit in the bag. So I used that bag to tourniquet my arm, stop the bleeding. And then now's the hard part. I got her pretty much under control. Now I got to drag her 135-pound ass all the way back to my boat without killing myself while she's still alive, mind you. She's still alive. So my gun's on the boat because I'm not out there just shooting snakes. I'm usually out there. I'll catch, bag it, go back to the boat, throw it in the thing, go catch some more. The last day before I leave the swamp, I'll euthanize them all, so I don't got to worry about keeping them all fresh.
Oh, that was my question, because I'm like, why are you not out there with a shotgun? Or
well,
just
also too, I'm making use of the skin and everything like that. I don't want to damage
you want to
anything.
keep them intact, but you also don't want to
totally
have to keep them in a cooler or something like that, or gut them or anything like that.
And aside from that, any state contractor, any professional snake catcher, none of them are shooting them.
Okay.
And that's because you'll lose a lot of snakes like that. You'll shoot them, and if you don't hit them absolutely perfectly in the brain, they're gone, dude.
Is there a component of this though that's like noodle? Like obviously you can catch a catfish on your little like Barbie bait caster, but you could also, catch them with
like
your bare hand if you want. Yeah, are you noodling a little bit here? That's part of it.
Speak for everyone, but for me, half of the reason I do it is because like, oh my God, my blood gets pumping. I love it, and I'm a snake freak, dude. So I love interacting, playing with these crazy exotic snakes. To me, it's like literally a childhood dream come true. When I was a little kid in my backyard catching corn snakes, I'm literally fantasizing about catching bigger old pythons.
Snakes.
Like,
and then they show up.
True for me.
Then they show up.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
It's a bad thing,
but you're built for it. You're built for it. Yeah. Well, I like, a lot of times you talk to spiritual people and they'll say things like everybody's born, like you're born for the future. You know what I mean? Like there's something put in you. Yeah. And then as you grew and evolved, the thing that you felt as a kid, now the conditions are present and you're needed and you get called upon to go do the thing. But I want to ask about what's the teeth like on this animal? And then when you drag one, well, actually, let me ask you this first. So has it gotten for you kind of like you've been doing it long enough? Like if I get in the ring right now with a pro fighter, those punches are going to hit me in the face before I even realize what's going on. But over time, things start to slow down. You get a little matrixy. You start seeing things in real time as they happen. You're at the point now where you're sort of seeing the moves the snake is making. Things slow down a little bit.
Well, I know what the snake's going to do before it does it. Usually, I can just tell by body language and just everything. Like,
what's the mouth on these pythons like?
So they have 2 rows of teeth, top and bottom. The bottom's actually split. Their jaw can extend and open like this. Top row, they actually have an outside row and then an inside row. A whole bunch of teeth. I don't have a number for you, but too many
little
teeth.
Needly things.
So they're basically like needles. They puncture you. They're not ripping you. I mean, they're razor sharp. I would say out of all the animal teeth I've ever come across, and I've come across a lot of them, they have the sharpest teeth. They touch you.
And you're already
open.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then dragging one, when you're dragging it, it's alive. So I'm trying to picture, I've dragged bears, I've dragged deer, I've dragged hogs. Like I got a sense of when all the mass is like a kettlebell, all kind of concentrated in the body. But when you got that long, weird weight, how does that work?
So, she's alive, but after we wrestle and I whoop her ass, basically, she's gassed out. She's cold blooded. She's like a limp noodle. So she's not fighting much, but don't take that for granted and let her get around you, because you're done then. A snake like that, once it gets you, like there's no getting out unless you have someone to unravel it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have its head basically, and I'm dragging it along, just heave hoeing it 1 inch at a time. And yeah, because it is long, it kind of makes it a little bit easier, I feel like, than dragging just a big old lump in front of you. It kind of spreads it out, maybe, I guess. I don't know, but it's not easy by any means. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like, like that CrossFit thing with those big heavy ropes. Like that's the best way to train. What about force multipliers? Like, when you're hunting hogs, like, I'd imagine night vision's no good because they're camouflage. So they're just still camouflage under night vision. Where they're cold blooded, do they show up with any signature on thermal?
No, I've tried it all, and you might watch one of the TV shows and it might look like it works, but that's because I made it work.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't. We had like a $500,000 drone, and
nothing.
You can't see it.
Yeah, right.
They're too close to the temperature, their surrounding temperature, that a flashlight's just better. The flashlight doesn't scare them, so why not just light it up and you can see perfectly. Now, I will say I took out a team of researchers that were developing a specialized camera that was a thermal camera with a special filter in it, where it actually picks up like polarity, like the reflective properties of a material, of a texture,
the shine off of their scale.
The python's the most reflective thing out in the swamp, and we took them out there, and these cameras worked very well.
Cool. Wow.
There would be a python hidden behind grass, and you would see it like a hot object behind it.
Yeah.
I think that camera paired with a drone and some of the software they use currently in Africa to track rhinos and things like that to fight against poachers. It would be like a hunter like me, a human, but with the best possible vision to see pythons with the fastest possible mind to realize they saw a python. And then you'd fly that down a levee at like 80 miles an hour. And then you would have an actual hunter like myself linked to it. And then it would be this levee, there's a python here, 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 and here. I would go hit it. Then we go on to the next levee. And that would be
that ever going to happen, or that's just what's possible?
It looks like it may be happening.
Wow.
So last I heard, they were getting funding for the cameras. They got a grant or something like that. And the next stages are, I don't know what. I don't know if maybe giving hunters the cameras to start to try out and field test, and then eventually get it on drones or what. But it looks like, maybe within the next, knowing how, everybody works in the government, probably 10 years, but
slow. Yeah.
Eventually maybe.
Talk to me about I'm interested in the food component, and like I mentioned to you, I go down to the Keys, I go down to Marathon, and I bring a lot of iguanas back, which I have found to be fantastic eating. I wouldn't maybe want to subsist on it, but I like to, I skin them, smoke them, pick the meat off the bones, and I do tacos with them, and they're like a fan favorite up here. I was watching a news show one time. It was a guy who had written a cookbook on iguanas. He did a whole recipe book, and they go, well, let's cook something with these ones. He was out shooting them with air rifles in a golf cart, and they say, let's cook one of your recipes, and he admits that he'd never actually ever eaten one.
Oh, really?
And I was so let down. Like, dude, you wrote a cookbook. You never even ate one, you disingenuous bastard. But are these something you would personally eat? Are they something you feed to your, animals? Do you use the meat at all? Like, what's going on with them? And is there really any food culture around it? Is it worth eating? Because that's something that I get asked about a lot.
No, it's good. I've eaten it many times. I don't eat it all the time by any means. I always say you can only eat so much lizard meat. Mm-hmm. And I'm honestly a picky eater as it is. People always think I'm like this crazy adventurous eater. I'm not at all. The total opposite.
Okay.
But me eating it says a lot. It really is good. I've had it multiple times where I'm like, this is better than chicken, and it's higher in protein.
Okay.
The cheeks, especially on those big males, dude, that is
Really?
a very, very good piece
They got a
of meat.
jowl
Yeah.
like a gator has, like a big fat
Yep,
jowl
and they
on
hang
its side.
down, and
Yeah.
they look all funky and nasty, but inside's like a nice little cutlet or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Is there much
yeah,
meat besides that? Because I would imagine you got
no,
just
they don't
ribs
have a
down the
whole
whole
bunch of
thing.
meat.
Okay. Is there like a
Yeah, they
back
don't have a whole
strap or
bunch of meat.
anything?
They have like the base of the tail, the legs. I usually don't mess with the front legs, usually just the back
What do you
legs,
mean
and then
legs?
along, they're like it's like a chicken wing almost. They're back legs.
On it. Or what are we talking
The
about right
iguana.
now? Oh, I want to
I'm
start.
talking about
Oh,
iguana.
I'm talking about pythons. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's cool. All right. So first off, then I've never taken the jowls off a big iguana. I've only caught when I get one of them big old orange ones.
The big old jowls.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
the best piece of meat on
okay,
them.
I've
Dude, that's
never
better
eaten
than
that part.
chicken.
I've never eaten that
Oh my
part.
god, it's
Oh.
so good.
Now, when I see that big
blows
orange
away the
one,
rest of the iguana.
that big orange one is still a green iguana. He's just
Yep, he's just a big
short
dominant
face.
male.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good to know, man. They
Yeah,
put up a
but to
fight.
go back to the pythons, the pythons are not bad either. I will say this: if you're going to eat one, you want a smaller one, definitely under 8 foot. It's going to be not as chewy, and B, mercury content on the larger pythons you
and
need to worry
mercury
about.
must be pretty bad.
Exactly. Now I've had python many times, and it's not my favorite. It's like leather, but I'm always cooking it real fast for like Discovery Channel or something like that, where it's like I'm not sitting down and really trying to make a good meal for myself. I'm just trying to cook it and eat it on camera, if I'm being totally honest. And I've like boiled it and grilled it. And what you need to do is you need to slow cook it, like really break it down, turn it into a stew or a curry, and I guarantee it'd be pretty good.
What's the
taste
meat
was
like?
great. It was just like leather.
But is there anywhere where there's big boneless pieces of meat, or is it?
Yeah, there's actually a good hunks of meat on the ribs. These pythons are real meaty.
Okay.
It's mostly all muscle, but yeah, it's like almost like a tuna kind of thing. It's,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like some big cutlets.
There's definitely some meat.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested in trying it. I'd like to make an episode of
And I heard their eggs are
there.
really good. I'm not into any of that, but yeah. I actually do know other hunters that'll make stuff with their eggs and things.
Yeah.
But I'm not a real adventurous eater.
Do you like venison?
Yeah, I love venison and all that. Wild hog, I eat all that good stuff, and but I'm not trying to eat snake eggs.
Gotcha. I'll eat some snake eggs though. I'd like to I'll give that a whirl. Maybe you can pass me some. This thing you're doing with the deer management, I'm really interested in hearing about too. A couple things come to mind. One is that I was just down there checking out the key deer, and I said to my buddy in Marathon, I was like, "Yeah, mate, what do I go out at dusk and find a field?" And he's like, "Dude, just drive through the streets in the middle of the day. There's deer everywhere."
Yeah,
and I was really blown away by that, but you're
that's
shooting
because they're protected,
right?
They know
of course.
they can.
Yeah, of course. But you're hunting whitetails down there, obviously.
Yeah.
I always, I think sometimes I brought up earlier that in our culture today, there's this. You start talking about needing to remove invasive species, and people think, well, the reason they're here is people. This is people's problem. We should just leave them alone. And you want to sometimes be like, because I think with the iguanas, one of the tough sells is a lot of the damage iguanas are doing is to infrastructure. So again, those same people will be like, well, I don't care. You shouldn't have golf courses. We need to leave animals alone. With deer, you're like, no, dude, you don't understand. They're eating all of the succession growth, and they're taking a generation of trees out. Like up here, when we're overpopulated with deer, it affects the ability of the forest to even regenerate itself. And these are real ecological issues. This isn't just undermining somebody's steps or golf course. Like,
well, like even with deer, there's a lot where people just don't understand and they don't think about and they don't account for. And that's the same with the iguanas. Most people don't know this. I only know this because I'm out in the field every day and I've witnessed it with my own eyes. Yeah. And I've talked to other people like me out there that have witnessed it as well. And it is now being documented. And it's, I'm trying to make noise about it. And, you will start to hear more about it. But these iguanas, what they've been doing, other than undermining seawalls and housing foundations, sidewalks, all that good stuff, is they'll actually take over native animal burrows. So down here, wow. Two big species we have that are always struggling, they're threatened and protected, are our burrowing owl and our gopher tortoise. Both are staples of Florida. The burrowing owls are super cool. They're a ground owl. They always come out, look at you like a prairie dog. People like them, take pictures of them. And then the gopher tortoises as well. The iguanas will actually go in their burrows during this time of year, destroy their nest, take out all of their eggs,
Wow.
lay their own nest, and kick that animal out of their burrow.
No way.
I've seen them do it, and a lot of other people have as well. And them taking out an entire nest like that, now that animal didn't lay its nest for that season.
Yeah.
And now that whole generation's wiped out.
Yeah.
Just like you said with the deer wiping out,
Yeah.
So there's always a lot more than people realize. And at the end of the day, the animal doesn't belong here. It's having negative effects. We need to do something about it, because there's probably even a lot more going on than I even know about.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Do the iguanas, they always talk about them being herbivorous, but are they eating ground nesting bird eggs, or are they eating insects?
Not from what I've seen. I've only
plants.
seen them destroy them in a territorial type thing.
Yeah.
I've never seen them like actually where I think they're really eating them. Even if I see them maybe munching, to me it never looked like eating.
Okay.
I wouldn't put it past them. They may be a little opportunist where they might eat a bug or something, maybe like an egg, but I don't see that being, real common. Now, the Mexican spiny-tailed iguana,
newcomer,
which is a different species of iguana, which is another iguana that's kind of exploding out of control in certain areas. They are opportunist, and they will eat meat for sure.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have Nile monitors that basically their favorite
That's a big
thing is
animal,
eggs
huh?
and meat. Yep, I caught one not too long ago, actually with the help of my dogs.
So their breeding population down there, are they expanding their range?
And then the black and white Argentina tegu as well, which is devastating the crocodile egg populations.
No
Crocodile is an endangered species,
okay,
protected species. And so they have a lot of really bad negative effects that we need to get on top of. And it's funny, man. Everyone always loves the invasive reptiles. It's like they're the target number one, but feral cats are the worst invasive we got on this planet, basically, and they get a free pass every
Except,
time.
is it New Zealand or Australia where they don't get a free pass, right?
Yeah.
It's such a trip
they
over.
Catch hell for it.
Yeah, well, because you see a dude holding up, doing a grip and grin with a house cat.
You got to be careful how you go about it, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a real funny one you bring up, because the impact on birds is it's just
dude, they've wiped out like countless species. Like they're the reason that bird species is extinct for like 15 species or something.
Cats
Crazy.
are too. They're, when you look at domesticated animals, like, you got dogs, you got a relationship with a dog, and you feel like the dog through domestication, going from wolf to dog, has like lost so much of its wildness, and it just looks at you like you're alpha, and it's just happy to be domesticated. Cats are always like, you are tricking me. You are pretending to be domesticated to get a free ride.
Well, to me, it's like there is a reason we domesticated dogs. Like, what is it? Like, what does a cat do for us?
Yeah.
Like,
they tell us they mouse for us, but
Well,
I feel like
that's a good point. So I do have a barn cat that he's locked in my barn to protect my feed from rats, and he does an all right job.
They'll do that, but cats just always feel to me like they are using us. We're kind of more using dogs. Like, I feel like cats are just taking an advantage, but it's funny, people don't realize that the cute kitten thing fools them. But hey, I want to ask you, I got a question about air rifle hunting, because a couple reasons. One is because and you do some air rifle hunting, right? I've seen you with some nice air rifles. So watching where things are going politically, and where things are going at with what I thought were constitutional rights but seem like are under threat suddenly. I've been thinking a lot more about transitioning a lot of my hunting to air guns, just to avoid a lot of the kind of issues. But also because laws are so much simpler. It's like, hey, if you're listening to this, you don't know this. First of all, you can hunt almost any animal on the planet with an air gun. They make them in all kinds of sizes. But also you can have one just sent right to your door. You don't have to go through any kind of gun store to get one. But I'm curious, when I'm down in Florida, I am largely I've got a buddy down in Key Marathon, Chris Still, who owns a shop called the Tackle Box, and he builds me snares. So I've got like a fishing rod, a long fishing rod with a wire snare on the end. Okay, that works great. But when you're air rifle hunting in Florida, are there laws? What are the laws about where you can discharge those projectiles, and how effective are they? What do you prefer for an air rifle on an iguana?
Yeah, so I use a Edgun Leshy. I used to use the Edgun Leshy Classic 25 caliber. Now I use the Edgun Leshy 2 semi-auto 30 caliber, and dude, it is extremely effective, and I beat the living hell out of it, and I've been super impressed with it.
And that's a pre-charged gun. You fill that off
you charge it up.
tank or a pump.
It has 8-round mags, and I just keep a pocket full of magazines, and it's like a laser beam. Hits them extremely hard, like 900 feet per second, I think.
Wow.
And it's like a super light AR-15 short barrel rifle.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like these big, stupid air rifles.
Right.
I'm using it out in the field, like literally running and gunning. So like, that's why they reached out to me.
Semi-auto must be nice.
Oh yeah. And because of how small and light and compact it is compared to these other guns, it's a total game changer.
Spell that for me. That you said Ed?
ED gun.
Okay.
And then the Leshy is LESHIY. And the Leshy 2 is the semi-automatic one they just came out with. That's unbelievable.
That sounds like it'd be a good squirrel gun for me up here.
Dude, it's a good everything gun.
And you like it in the 30 cal, huh?
Yeah, so I had the 25 before, and I was super impressed with it, but now I got this 30, because these big iguanas, they're insanely tough.
They're tough, man.
And the 30 drops them. Yeah, I use the 30 to take out Egyptian geese. I can actually hit them in the chest and kill them now instead of
Tell me about those birds, hard dude.
Headshot. What's that?
What's the story on those birds?
Yeah, so the Egyptian geese and the Muscovy ducks are a big problem down here. The Egyptian geese is kind of more of a newer problem. They're taking over everywhere. They're real aggressive. They drive out our native duck species, and they crap everywhere. And that's why a lot of these places bring me in, is because of the crap.
That's what it actually gets them in there.
Well, yeah. For me, it's getting them out to bring the natives back in, because every single time I get them out of there, dude, the next week or two, I start to see native ducks come back in, all kind of different types. And for me, we like duck hunting and things like that. I want the native species to be thriving in Florida, so we can hunt them and enjoy them.
The thing is that Florida has so many amazing native species. That's what's a real bummer. Is like, it's not just like there was nothing here and now there's all these things. Like, there's all these amazing species that are struggling now, and yeah, it's fascinating. But is this bird a good eater? I imagine you're getting probably mostly golf courses and stuff like that. Where you don't want to eat
the Egyptian
birds,
goose. The Egyptian goose it's good. But I'll tell you what, the Muscovy duck's the best.
Yeah,
dude, you get a big old steak piece of meat out of it, because they're huge, and it eats like beef. It's delicious.
Yeah, really? Okay. Yeah, so you got a big steaky thing. So what's the story? How'd they get there, and what's the situation like on the ground?
People buying them as pets, and the Muscovies, they originally brought over as like a food source, kind of like the hogs.
Okay.
But the Egyptian geese were more brought over because they're pretty birds, and people would stock their ponds with them, and then they just flew away and got loose. You know what I mean, sort of thing. But to get back to your question about the air rifles, you come down here, you're good pretty much everywhere. As long as you're being responsible with your air gun, you're not trespassing on people's property, and you're not just leaving animals dead everywhere.
Right.
You're good.
Okay.
There's no laws around
about the
air
discharge.
rifles.
So there's not like a general discharge of any projectile law. There's just discharge of a firearm.
Just firearms.
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like I could be a lot more effective, or maybe combining the two tools together. But I think especially when you're out like in the mangroves, and they're out on the edges sometimes. Definitely. Hey, why with the pythons? One of the things I love about hunting iguanas is it's like the only thing that I'll hunt at noon, like the middle of the day. I'm so used to it's like sunrise, sunset are your good times, and noon, it's kind of downtime. With them, it's like cruise around in the middle of the day. There they are sunning. And I'm assuming because they got to charge the battery basically out in the sun, being cold-blooded. Why are the pythons out at night, and why is it not easier to find them sunning in the day?
So the pythons you can find sunning during the day, but it's got to be like during the winter, during a cold front. Our mid day sun's just too hot for them. They don't need all that. They can get all the heat they need from the water or from underneath vegetation. But during the winter, when we have these cold fronts, they will come out up until about noon. Sometimes a little bit later, depending on if it's cloudy out or what, and you can see them. But they really like these warm summer, fall nights. They're out there hunting, cruising these levees all night, traveling, and that's really how you're hunting them. You're trying to catch them out in the open, moving around. You'll never really find them when they're just like in their little home or, resting. They just disappear.
Yeah.
I've only found a few pythons like that.
Their camouflage
All the ones
is
I
amazing.
found, they're hunting, traveling sort of thing for the most part.
Anything eating them?
Yeah, occasionally alligators will, but pythons are hunting alligators. Alligators aren't really hunting pythons.
Okay.
But, it does sometimes happen. When they're first born, coming out of the egg, for the first month, maybe two, large birds of prey will scoop them up and eat them. I've actually been out there hunting, and there's been a little owl that scooped up a hatchling right in front of me. And, it's
cool.
like,
Yeah.
you just stole $50 from me, but that's all right. But after a couple months, they get so big that they're bigger than an adult native snake.
Wow.
Yeah.
Outside of being in the field, tell us a little bit about what you got going on at the ranch, and then some of the educational type work that you do too, because it seems like you've got your hands in a bunch of different. This has led you to a bunch of different little offshoot things, right?
Yeah, I've always been into like kind of rescuing and making wildlife pets if I can and things like that. And we have a whole bunch of different wildlife rescues. A squirrel that
the gray squirrel
rescued. Rescued rehab Earl
What's
the
his name?
squirrel.
Earl
the squirrel. Yeah. And he's really cool. And the plan was to release him back in the wild, but he was actually brought to us because he was a little tiny thing, only had a couple patches of hair, and he was just too friendly. He actually came up and crawled up somebody. Oh. And, for a squirrel, that's going to get you hurt, going to get you in trouble, probably going to get animal control called on you. So we took him in. I was hoping I could maybe, when he get older, he would get more call of the wild wanting to go. And he'll climb up a tree and come right back to me, So I think he's just going to kind of stay a permanent rescue, maybe use him as some education. Kids would like him, things like that. I have that big white throat monitor I actually just captured in Martin County recently, a 6.5-foot white throat monitor. Kind of like a Nile monitor, but a little beefier. Okay. And wow, like a Komodo dragon.
I was gonna say beefier than that's a big animal.
Yeah. And
what's he weigh, do you think?
Maybe like 30 pounds, something like that.
That's a lot of lizard.
25, 30 pounds. He was crushing rabbits where I caught him. There was they said they haven't seen a rabbit in forever. And I captured him. I could tell he was an escape pet. He wasn't wild born. I've captured Nile monitors that were wild born before. And dude, they're like a velociraptor. They don't stop for a second, This thing I could pick up. It was trying to bite me.
He was used to being handled by people.
Somewhat, I could tell. He was hissing. He was pissed off. He was trying to tail whip me. He was trying to bite me, but I got him to kind of calm down. And that was a telltale that he's been a pet. So I keep him and use him for videos, talking about invasive species. And then actually we have a reptile, an educational show coming up. I'm going to bring him and kind of show him to kids and, they'll be like, oh my God.
Right on.
And then I actually have a big 7-foot red-tailed boa I rescued maybe a couple years ago. And funny thing is, we realized when I was going to rescue it, when I got there talking with the folks, it was actually a snake that I owned as a kid, and I sold when it became, maybe after a year or two after I had it, I sold it because that's kind of what I did for allowance as a kid. I'd get reptiles, grow them, and sell them for profit. And it was one of the snakes, one of my favorite snakes. Talking with the people, I was like, well, where'd you get the snake? And, some young kid down in Martin County.
No
and I was
way.
like, what neighborhood? I was like, that was me. Like, are you guys shitting me right now?
Wow.
I was like maybe, 8 years old or something.
Yeah.
So it was pretty wild. And that was kind of at the beginning of all the social media. So it was like kind of almost a sign that I'm on the right track and, I using it for education. It was almost that I was looking for the perfect animal to use for these reptile shows, and just came in my lap, and it was like, I know this snake. So it's cool.
That's wild.
And, we got feral hogs that I've kept as rescues. A little, call her Peppa the pig. Her growth was stunted because she was orphaned. And then I have always a whole bunch of feral hogs in my possession. I'm a licensed feral hog dealer in Florida.
Okay.
I capture them with my trained dogs I've trained, different hog dogs. We go out, they find them, they help me capture the hogs. I tie the hogs up, transport them back to the ranch, where I then fatten them up on iguana meat, fatten them up on python meat, and all these other invasives that, if I don't make use of it or whatever, I don't want it to go waste, so I'll feed it to them. And then I eventually sell them as livestock.
No kidding. And they'll go into that sort of, when you buy a wild hog at a restaurant somewhere. If I understand this right, like the hog has...
It would have to be...
Through a USDA
if you were to get it from
facility.
A restaurant, it would have to be USDA approved in a facility.
So
exactly.
you can, that's it. So you can live trap them, and then they can go to a USDA slaughterhouse.
And be processed.
That's how they can make it in the market. Because otherwise, like, we don't have really wild game outside of seafood. We don't have wild game in our marketplace anymore, except for hogs, which is, to me, this eat the invasives thing is like, that's the way to approach this. I mean, I think that's a fantastic approach.
Which most of the hogs I'm selling, they don't go to like a restaurant. It's mostly, because of my following especially, it's a lot of private buyers. I'll get like double, triple what I'll get if I'm selling to a private buyer.
Awesome.
So, or I'll sell it to even hunting ranches, high fence ranches that need some hogs for people to hunt.
Dude, what's your annual antibiotic budget? I mean, you must be getting...
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Not crazy. I'm not giving antibiotics to any of the hogs or anything.
No. I don't mean that. I'm saying for you, like,
for me
getting
personally,
bit by snakes. You must get every once in a while hit by a hog.
I had a guy send me like a crate of ointments, liquids, powder, every kind of antibiotic you can imagine. And dude, every day I thank him, because dude, I get trench foot from like having wet feet for 2 weeks straight, like all kinds of stuff. And it's been a blessing through social media, dude. I've had a lot of people get my back and like help me with a lot of stuff.
That's awesome.
It's very cool.
Tell us how we can support you, everybody listening.
If you guys want to support me, watch the YouTube, go to my website, pythoncowboy.com, buy some merchandise, or hell, come on down to Florida and pay me to take you out on a guided hunt. I guarantee it'll be... Oh yeah, I've been doing a lot of them lately. I can only do so many, in between all my jobs. But lately, I've been doing these guided iguana hunts that, dude, I've done a lot of guided hunts, and these are the funnest thing you could possibly do. Like,
I love that you do that, dude. Because I've had, after doing my iguana episode and posting about it, people are always asking. A lot of people want to get involved in it. Yeah. I haven't known an iguana guide. Yeah,
bow fishing, hogs,
what
gators.
Do you bow fish?
I usually go Lake Okeechobee. I have an airboat. We cruise along and we blow darts, bow fishing, all kinds of stuff.
What species?
Tilapia. You can get gar out there. Bunch of different species.
Cool.
Yeah, invasive species as well.
Awesome.
Tilapia.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So people who are interested
fish.
in. Oh, cool. Man, it's funny. I think of the Oscars as like an aquarium fish. That's how I always know.
The Oscars are a massitive problem down here.
Are they?
They're all. They're
that's
eating
another invasive.
Everything. They're everywhere, and they get big. Yeah.
Do they eat okay? Are they? Can you eat them?
I actually heard they're pretty good. Yeah, I heard they're like white meat and they taste good. I've never had one, but yeah.
They're down to that picky eating. So that's cool. So you got the guide thing too, so people can come down and work with you on that level. That's really awesome.
We go out in a boat, load you up with the funnest air guns you can shoot, and we just blast the hell out of them. And then I got my dog Otto, who's trained to go out and retrieve them. And a lot of the ones he's got to finish off himself, shakes them out. Eggs flying, dude. It's gold.
It's a scene. Yeah. Man, anything concluding you want to leave the audience with? Kind of wrap up your whole philosophy on things.
And do what you enjoy, and don't go releasing your pets out in the wild.
That pretty much sums it up. Mike, thanks so much for your time today, man. One last time, give us your website.
pythoncowboy.com. And then if you want to talk to me about a guided hunt, shoot an email over to pythoncowboyhunts@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to the WildFed podcast. You can help us grow the show by subscribing and leaving us a rating and review.
It ensures better rankings and more advertiser interest, which translates directly into better shows, more awesome guests, and a constant stream of fresh, new content. Have a question you'd like answered on the show, or a hunting, fishing, or foraging trip you'd like to host us on? Email us at info@wild-fed.com. And be sure to visit our website, wild-fed.com, to check out the WildFed video show and store. WildFed. Food is all around you.